One, and we are live. Hi, everyone. I am here with Aaron Russell, and this is going to be a winner's interview with Aaron, who's made quite a splash during this spring here in Europe, at least. I don't know how much of a celebrity you are in Australia, but for me, that was a power run through Europe that you just made, winning not 5 steps back and then winning the Danish nationals as well in like 2 weeks. So hi, Aaron, and welcome to the channel.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, no, it was good fun,
Mm,
especially getting in a bit of a holiday as well.
yeah, yeah. So Aaron, you're based in Australia, right?
Yeah,
Um, where is it in Australia that you actually live?
in Brisbane, so
Right.
in Queensland, like the
Yep.
hottest
Yep.
part.
Yep.
Always summer,
And
except for two
Aaron,
weeks of the year.
you took a vacation to Europe, and during that time, you wrote out and pinged a few people and said, well, is some gaming happening? And did you actually like pack your army in your suitcase and took it all the way to Europe with you?
Yep,
Yep. Yep.
yep. But just the same one. Like I had to have the same because I can't really take two armies, so it had to sort of
No.
be the same thing
Yeah.
that could,
Yeah.
you know, um, satisfy whatever events I was going to be playing in. Um, but yeah, I definitely made sure I had enough extra luggage,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
to take it
Yeah.
on. But yeah, it was good.
Right. So in a winner's interview, I'm going to try and see if we can learn like some of the things that makes you tick and why it is that you have won basically a couple of tournaments here. So but before we actually get to that bit, could you just start by like how did you get into bold action? Let's start with that question.
Mm. I think how I got into it was I remember seeing it being played at CanCon, which
Hmm.
is like our biggest sort of
Yeah.
national event down
Yeah.
here in Canberra, and it was I knew someone that was playing it as well. Um, but yeah, I just was sort of going around, so and aesthetically it looked gorgeous. Like the models and also all the terrain and stuff, and just the
Hmm.
setup and that. And I sort of fell in love with that side of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
First, it was the aesthetics of the game that drew me in, and of course the fact that it's also World War II. So it's
Hmm.
like a historical game, which I definitely have more of a liking to than sort of ahistorical. But yeah, like that was kind of it really, and then
Yeah.
picked it up that way,
Yeah.
sort of in COVID. Started reading the rules
So
and
so
went from
you're
there.
actually a COVID convert to bold action.
Pretty
Okay.
much, yeah. Like
The rest of us
yeah,
didn't get to game at
basically.
all, but okay, that is really cool. Which also
Mm,
means that you're a little bit more recent than a lot of us. And we also
mm,
talked about when you were in Denmark that you maybe have a slightly non-typical background in gaming, because like a lot of us come from Games Workshop games, Warhammer 40K or
mm.
whatever. But you basically you come from historical gaming, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I've never played 40K, um, or any. Actually, I have played Middle Earth, which is
Yep.
technically a Games
That is a
Workshop
Games
game.
Workshop one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but not all that much.
Mm.
Sort of dabbled really, but yeah, uh, yeah, that's definitely the background. Haven't I wouldn't
Mm.
even know the first thing about. I know a Space Marine. That's
You know what it
that's
is.
the
Yeah.
extent of my knowledge. Yeah.
Mm. Right. So you brought Soviets to the tournaments here in Europe. Is that your main army?
Um, no, I actually started with British,
Yep.
and then mostly themed it just sort of around a British paratrooper force, and
Mm.
then moved into Romanians, then the Soviets, and I've also got three-quarters of a US force. So basically I've got about 1,000 points of US at the moment, but I
Yeah.
haven't
Yeah.
really used them much, and I've got maybe a quarter of an unpainted Japanese army, which
Okay.
I haven't got around to doing
The,
anything
the
with yet.
the piles of shame don't count. Not for
No,
full
no, okay.
armies.
All right, we won't count that then. So yeah,
No.
I've got 1,000 points of US as well, which I haven't used yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Soviets, Brits, and Romanians sort of been the ones I've been using over the last 3 years.
So Soviets and Romanians, that's very heavy on the infantry bodies for me at least. Is that also like how you approach what it is that you do with your lists?
I feel like I've played a fair bit of a variety of styles with the
Mm?
different ones. When I was sort of running Romanians at CanCon this year, I just used regulars. Basically, the whole army was regular. All my
Yep.
infantry, just regular riflemen.
Yep.
Basically. So that seemed to work okay, but very different to how the Soviets were constructed. Obviously, the Romanians don't get any of the access to those finicky little small team options and
Yeah.
gimmicks and things like
Yeah.
that.
They
They're
are
very
a little
basic.
restricted, right? In the
Yeah,
selection of units.
super
Yeah.
basic.
Yeah.
But yeah, just sort of the rifles, which you've got to be more careful with, regular riflemen, but they can do the job if used well. You've
Mm.
just got to keep an eye on the ranges. I found, like, what range am
Yes.
I at right now? What range do I want to be at?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but
A lot of
they,
a lot
yes,
of
a bit different.
people. Sorry. Yeah. A lot of people when they build regular rifles will go for a very specific number of riflemen. How many riflemen did you take for your Cancun
Mm.
Romanians then?
Doesn't matter. I just did whatever, like whatever I end up having the points with. I didn't necessarily need to be symmetrical. I think I had 2 squads of 10,
Mm,
a squad of 8,
mm,
or 2 squads of 10, 2 squads of 8. I think I had, but it
okay.
was more just like, I need 20 more points. I'll just take
Mm,
2 guys off or whatever. Like,
yeah.
I didn't want them being too low. Like around the 6 is kind of
Yeah.
like I can put out a pin and not much else. But
Yeah.
usually at 8, 9, 10, even 7 up, being on ambush, you may be able to ward off
Mm,
an incoming assault of some kind,
yeah.
or at least SMG or flamethrower guys that are trying to jump out of a truck at you. 6, they can probably take that risk,
Yeah.
take a pin, lose a guy, and then you're still stuffed. So
Mm,
yeah, I think probably 7 to 10 is probably what you'd be looking for.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think I had from memory two 10s and 2 8s.
Okay. And how
Yeah.
did you do at CanCon?
I ended up winning with the Romanians. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was good. Yeah, definitely different style than other forces I've used before.
Yeah.
Had played a bit different, but
Mm.
yeah, still can work for sure.
Now, um, for me, I quite often tend to think of bold action in terms of different army builds. So you'll
Mm.
have something where you have a lot of artillery or a lot of direct shooting or a lot of bodies on the table. So different army builds. Do you think of bold action in the same way, or are you one of those people who like pick a little bit of everything that you think you are going to need in your list?
I think armies can be built in a way that they are skewed
Mm,
to a certain style, or looking to shoot for a certain outcome,
mm,
um, or maybe potentially counter something specific or provide something specific.
yeah.
Um, and they can be balanced. I think generally, I think they all can work, but it is circumstantial as well, right? Like, I think the coming into play would be what you're coming up against, but generally that's out of your control. But
Mm,
the mission and the type of tournament is,
yeah.
which will generally determine what you're probably expecting to see anyway, and
Mm,
then you can sort of plan for that, because you're going to have some line of sight on that anyway. Well, oh, I've probably gone around roundabout way of not even answering your question directly. You could. Were you asking sort of what I like to go for?
Yeah, what do you like?
Yeah.
Like, is there a certain type of army list and army build that
Mm,
you sort of this is my style?
hmm I do like mixing it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Honestly, I do like mixing up a little bit. What sort of style army I use has definitely differed over the last couple of years, but it's more
Mm,
just to A, keep it fresh, B, work out new plans or strategies. It adds another element of fun, bit more of
mm.
a challenge too. But I think you actually get better doing that as well.
I think so too.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I do quite like mixing it up.
Mm,
And sometimes you're forced to do that when you just take a totally different army that doesn't have,
yeah.
they have differing options.
Yep.
Um, but the way I generally look at it is with units. Um, there's really only three types of, besides from a few weird obscure things, there's really only three types of fire. There's small arms,
Mm,
which can come in lots of different forms. So simply, bullet form stuff, which is
yep.
going to only be able to hurt infantry, anything that's an infantry model or a soft skin. And then you've got HE, which comes in a few different forms. And then you've got, which can generally hurt
Yeah.
most things, but not upper echelon armor. And then you've got AT, which is
Mm,
generally only good at anything that's soft skin or more.
yep.
So I really kind of look at the game as every unit falls into those three categories. It's either dishing out small arms, which hurts, column A to C, or it's got
Mm,
HE, which hurts column A to D, or it's got AT, which hurts column C to F.
yeah.
That's kind of the way that I sort of look at the units, and that gives you a bit of a. If I clump them that way, that tells me, okay, this is what I can do with this army.
And then you can
These are
sort
the
of
tools.
pick what it is that you think you're going to need for your list. Is
Yeah,
that right? Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Mm.
Um, yeah, just working
I
out the
was
functions.
uh, I was surprised when you told me that you have Romanians because um, what I've seen you use so far with the list that you took to Europe, that was at least Soviets running, I think, towards having multiple flamethrowers and so more of a what I would term a barbecue list.
Mhm.
A list that has more elite troops as well, but Romanians is a quite different ball game. So
Mm,
I'm really impressed that you can play those two styles
mhm.
and do well with both of them because that's really skillful in my opinion. Did you find it was difficult to transition from one to the other?
Not really. Not, to be honest. Like, I feel like at the end of the day, most like, there are special rules and there are different things that make things different, and certain armies obviously have different choices. But at the end of the day, if I guess from a offensive standpoint, everything only falls into three categories, and every army has access to everything in three categories. They really
Mm,
don't differ all that much from army to army.
true.
I find, like, I don't think there's as much variance between nationality to nationality as probably what we all talk about,
Mm,
and even what I talk about all the time. It's cool, we like to talk about it, but yeah, I think from playing to playing, it doesn't matter all that much, I
mm,
think. Um, yeah, I mean, people having rifles or they've got SMGs, the SMG kills a rifle the same way as a
yeah,
rifle would kill,
yeah.
a man. So yeah, I mean, something has a AP of +3, another
Mm,
army's got an AP of +3. So yeah, I think in that regard, it's not all that different. Um, it's just the sort of decisions that you might make through the game may
yeah,
need to differ a little bit,
yeah.
and what you've got access to might need to differ as well a little bit. But
Mm,
yeah, what you can hurt. Mm.
right. Okay. So going into all these big tournaments, Cancun, not five steps back, Danish nationals. How do you prep for going to a tournament?
Well, I think the first thing is would generally is work out what sort of tournament it is, um, and then that sort of determine, what I mean. These days, generally, I don't um, play it too many events that aren't at least somewhat, competitive. Um, yeah, so I haven't. So I mean, generally, if I'm playing an event, it's going to be a competitive tournament.
Mm.
But I'll look at the pack if they've got the missions available. Then
Yep.
that will generally tell me, how I can win all the games, and at least then what value I can put on certain types of things.
Mm.
Down here, a lot of events we don't have, or in recently that I played in the big ones, vehicles can't even contest in a lot of the missions. So I feel like that drops the value of armor nines, especially armor
Yeah, it
eights, even.
does. Yeah,
Um,
because
you
you
can't.
typically want to run that up onto an objective and
Yeah,
sit there and contest that one and take the other two, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Go throw your Sherman on an objective in the
Yeah.
middle,
Yeah.
or you have two Shermans or whatever. That could be
Mm.
super effective in a
Yeah.
mission of even key positions where they only contest or something. If
Yep.
that's not the case, then those armor nines, even armor tens, lose
Not
even more
gonna be worth
viability.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a big thing. Probably, yeah, I think might underestimate the value of how that can change. But yeah, basically the missions, and then also what the points are. Is it single? Is it generic? Is it
Mm.
double? Is it theaters? Because then, are there armor platoons? Armor platoons haven't really been allowed for a little while now in pretty much most
I
events.
think some
Um,
TOs find them to be overpowered.
I agree.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I mean it's interesting because I remember when I first started playing, everyone's like, "Oh, vehicles, you can't take tank platoons;
Mm.
they're no good because they're just full of
Yeah.
vehicles."
Yeah.
Immediately, I'm thinking, I don't, I don't believe that. I'm pretty sure that if I took a bunch of vehicles and had the adequate amount of infantry,
Yeah.
that infantry platoon ain't going to stack up. So yeah, I think with the right nation, of course, there's some
Mm.
nations that aren't going to do armor platoons well because they don't have the right selection of vehicles.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that will determine, what I might expect to see,
Mm.
um, and then I can work out what tools I might need to bring
Yeah.
to fit the missions that are at hand, and also um, the lists that I might face.
Mm.
Which I noticed the Danish nationals, and not Five Steps Back as an example, I
Yeah.
was actually expecting to see very different things, very different
Okay.
lists at both of those,
Yeah.
which made it hard for me. And the missions were also different.
Mm.
The ones that Not Five Steps Back were all the exact same deployment, or I've heard people use the term turn zero. So
Yeah.
if I use that term, that might make help people understand. But so what happens before the game, they're all the same. It was
Mm.
all, you don't have to have reserves. You can do whatever you want. Everything comes on, nothing
Yeah.
deploys. So
Yeah.
it's all the same. It's all everything's first wave mission, but no quantity. Do what you want.
Mm.
Whereas, and they were all like that. So I'm thinking, okay, well, that really lends its hand to higher order dice armies,
It does.
because
Yeah.
they don't have to worry about their index stuff getting caught off the
Yeah.
board, and then their
Yeah.
whole army's in a jam. So I was expecting, like, yeah, cool, someone could bring a whole army of index, and they don't have to worry about it being off table,
Mm.
all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was interesting. Um, Probably good for vehicles as well. Units, you probably don't even have to worry about transports as much,
No,
because
all
all your
your
stuff can
transports
just
can
come
be
on.
inexperienced because they'll just
Yep,
drive on first
yep,
wave. Yep.
yep. Don't have to worry about failing auto test and reserve. So I
Mm.
thought that was interesting. Whereas I thought in the Danish Nationals it was variety. They were
Yeah.
all different, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I really like that.
Yeah.
I love that because it makes me think a bit more, but it also means, okay, I think that
Mm.
I'm going to see a variety as well. And if I come up
Yep.
against these Index units, it could be in a mission where they're going to really suffer,
Mm.
as well. So yeah, I think it probably lends hand to trying to build something a bit more middle ground, bit more balanced even.
Yeah.
Got to think, okay, how am I going to handle all of these missions? And they're all very different.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that's probably the first steps that
So the next
I
step
guess I
that
do.
typically happens at a tournament is that the lists will be released. Will you go over the lists that you are going to face at a tournament before the tournament,
Mm.
or is that something you're like, well, I'll just
Mhm.
browse them and see what happens?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Danish Nationals is the first time I'd ever been able to do that.
Okay.
At all the events down here, they'd never been released prior to the event, so I'd never been
Okay.
able to do that. Danish Nationals, I was able to. I didn't look at all of them. I didn't really study them, but I skimmed them all.
Yeah.
But I wanted to sort of know what nations were going to be there because that I felt like based on the research I'd done
Mm.
of the meta in Europe,
Yeah.
I could tell what I would expect to see just by knowing the nation.
Yeah.
Whereas down here, knowing the nation doesn't really help me at all. Like I need to see the list because the nation
Okay.
doesn't tell me what the other person's going to have. I feel like there's a bit more variety. So I was able to work that out. For example, there was the Italians. I'm like, okay, I'm going to see black shirts and I'm going to
You
see
are.
Italian
Yeah.
cavalry. And I
Yeah.
did. I saw black
Yeah.
shirts and
Yeah.
Italian cavalry and the M13s or 14s, whichever one it is.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, that was same with the Japanese. I thought, okay, I'm probably going to see the cavalry, some tough fighter
Mm.
cavalry, and I'm probably going to see a lot of spam small teams and things like that. And yeah, that's kind of what they were with backed up by some HE and stuff. So
Mm.
yeah, I think it was more just scanning the armies themselves,
Yep.
the nations. Yep, but that was
Yeah.
different. It's cool.
Right. And then you arrive at the event itself. You arrive at the venue. Um,
Mm.
do you take like a round and go around and look at tables? What is your approach to the tables when you get to an event?
Yeah, I do like looking at the tables as soon as I get there.
Yeah.
Um, but it's probably equally as much to see the terrain and check it all out aesthetically as it is strategically, to be honest.
Just going around
Um,
taking gorgeous pictures.
yeah, like, oh wow, this table looks good.
Yeah.
Oh, this table looks good. I'd love to play on this table, love to play on that table. Actually, I'd love to play on all the tables. um, so yeah, I think aesthetically, like just and you get in the feel for it and the vibe, and it's like, oh, this is
Mm.
good, and you start to get excited about it. But yeah, so probably more aesthetically than strategically.
Yeah.
But it is good to have a look at them and work out. The one thing I noticed actually, at
Mm.
probably both events, that the terrain seemed to be more centrally located.
Mm.
So a lot of terrain along the center line, going from long table
Yeah.
to long table,
Yeah.
which can actually influence the game a fair bit, in my opinion.
You can. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and also I want to know how much of that terrain is within 6 inches of the board edge on the long sides as well. And
Mm.
I noticed that in both of those, there wasn't as much
Yeah.
as I was expecting. But that's kind of it strategically. I just want to
Mm.
know how much terrain is more towards the center line and how much
Mm.
terrain is within 6 inches
Is that
of
because
the
it
board edges.
informs you of how you can deploy and also of how far up you can push into the board easily, or
Yeah,
what's the thought process there?
yeah, pretty much. What's gonna get? What can I get the cover from within six
Mm.
inches of either board edge?
Mm.
Is there much? But also, what is my opponent going to be able to deploy in
Yeah.
those zones?
Yeah.
So it's probably more around what the opponent's going to be able to do than myself.
Mm.
And then the center line is more for a lot of missions have objectives near the middle. So
Mhm.
how are they going to be contested? Are they going to be contested in terrain? Am I going to be able to put them in terrain?
Mm.
And am I going to need to push up on them to push opponents off them, or am I going to be able to hit them late? Am I going to? Is it going to be a close quarter fight over those, or can I actually skirmish because they're going to be in the open, or is the
Mm.
opponent going to be able to push up on me in cover? Am I going to be able to sit back? Am I going to be able to push up on them in cover? So it's just that kind of
Yeah.
thought process, I guess.
It's really interesting for me as the TO here because I had not thought of that. I mean, there's quite often talk about how much terrain you have on a table. So
Mhm.
like in some places the terrain will be more open, in some places it will be a lot more closed. In some places like World Open War, it was 3D terrain, so you had like levels and all kinds of
Mm,
stuff going on, which we don't do normally in mainland Europe at least. But to hear it as where do you actually place it? That I hadn't really thought about how much that does influence, but it does. It really does.
mm,
Because sometimes I've played on tables where the terrain was all along the edges more or less, and the center was open.
mhm.
Uh,
Yep.
that makes a very different game, doesn't it?
Mm,
So yeah, that's really interesting. And we're not going to talk about version 3, but potentially Warlord Games, if you're listening, potentially you might want to like talk about different setups, how you would like to see the standard game. I don't know, maybe.
mm,
Otherwise, we'll do
mm.
it ourselves at one point. Aaron, you'll come back and you can like argue for one type, and I'll argue for another, and we'll set up a standard system for tournaments.
Yeah.
Um, so what then? Now you've like talked us through the prep process in the week up to the tournament. Now you're going to the individual game. How do you go about winning that individual game? Going to the table that you're going to play at, meeting your opponent. How talk us through that process for you?
Mhm. Um, well, generally that's when because most of the time you don't know who your opponent's going to be or what list they've got until like 5 minutes before the game.
True. Yeah.
Um, so there's not a lot of. It's not like you can sit down overnight and plan it all out, or sit down a
No.
month ahead and work it all out. So it's really got to be on the fly. It's got to be pretty quick. Um, but generally, I'll just have a look at their list. Obviously, they'll have a look at mine, and then I can sort of work out, um, yeah, what are they going to be doing with the units they've got?
Mm,
What are they trying to do with all this stuff? Why did they build this army this way? Um, if I can identify why they build it a certain way, I mean, especially a competitive event. If it's thematic, obviously that's totally different. We're probably not
yeah.
really talking to that at the moment,
Yeah.
I guess. But yeah, if I'm working out why they're building it a certain way, then I can work out what they're trying to do with it, right? And most people, I find, they're pretty predictable. They don't
Mm,
really change much. Their
no.
plans don't really alter all that much. What they start with is generally what they follow through on. And
Mm,
if they built their army a certain way, they don't all of a sudden go, "Oh, I'm now going to try and play it like this or play it like that." I generally find so every now and again, yeah, like there'll be a curveball. I'm like, I was not expecting them to do all of this.
mm,
I need to change, and I need to change quick. So
yeah.
yeah, there's definitely that does happen.
Mm,
But yeah, it's generally just trying to work out what they're trying to do with what they've got. I will know the mission in advance, so that helps.
mm,
Or sometimes, sorry. So I know how I might be trying to win the mission.
yeah.
But yeah, the first thing is just looking at that list, and then working out what I want to, yeah, what
Do
they're
you
trying to do with
do you try to identify pressure points where your list sort of can, or what you want to do
it.
can sort of uh, find a weakness in their plan?
Yeah, there may be a couple of like things that you might quickly identify as paper rock scissors
Mm,
type actions,
yeah.
that might be looking for in the first, say, 2 or 3 turns.
Mm,
A couple of paper rock scissors type actions, if you know what I mean by that.
yeah.
Um, but outside of that, it's um, yeah, I may identify a couple of units that they have, which I find as a incredible threat, for the
Mm,
type of mission that we're about to play as well.
yeah.
So it could be working out what that is.
And how to deal with that? Yeah.
Yeah, and what will I
Mm,
do against
mm,
these couple of units that I find are a threat? Um, and then there might be stuff in there. It's like I'm actually going to not bother with this stuff because it's, to me, almost irrelevant. So there may be that as well, right?
mm,
Like a little bit of a quick ranking system. Cool,
yeah.
these 3 units are
Yeah.
a concern to me. These 3 units are of no concern whatsoever. something like that.
Now,
So
now, Aaron, we come to the crux of it because this is the most important question. This is the one that all the viewers are going to be like looking for you and looking for your answer because it's about your operating procedure, how you actually win a game.
mhm.
And we've actually like played half a game, the two of us. Not that I think either of us was very focused because it was
Nice.
between between the tournament play. Um, but I noticed one thing about what you do when you play a game, and I also saw that being repeated when I was looking over your shoulder during some of the other tournament games.
Mm,
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that at least what you were doing with your Soviets was that you sort of identified different areas of the board, and then you picked one and said, "This is where I'm going to push," and then you pushed like most of your army into that one point.
mm,
Is that
mhm,
right? Is that like you just told me that people don't change? Is that what you do?
mm. Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes, yeah, but definitely not always.
Mm,
I do like to be able to pivot and shift mid game.
yeah.
So generally, I'll do a quick. Well, and this doesn't always happen. Obviously, sometimes you're stressed or something happens that you weren't expecting, or
Yeah. Yeah.
something's going on in the game and you kind of forget. But I'll
Yeah.
try and do a quick analysis.
Mm,
What happened in that turn? Do I still proceed the way I'm proceeding?
yeah.
Um, so yeah, that I think I do change, but it depends on the mission. It depends on what they've got.
Yeah.
But that is sometimes an option um, that I will take. There's plenty of games where also I like to spread, and I like
Mm,
to spread and spread against them, and have
mm,
basically two armies facing off that are spread out and sort of
yeah.
almost matching up 1-to-1 with units.
Yeah.
Um, and
That
then I
does
can sort
allow
of
for
work out.
another type of play where you're more skirmishing than you're actually like
Mm,
tactically trying to outthink him. So
yeah,
so that will mean that your
trying to get the
ability
matchups
to,
that I want.
yeah, yeah,
Mm,
get the right matchups with the individual units, right? Yeah.
mhm, yeah. So yeah, no, that's probably a good point. But yeah, definitely different, I think. But there was
Mm,
there was one, two. I think there was two games where I
mm,
did that and did that
yeah.
extremely obviously. I think
Yeah.
in Danish nationals, but I think at least two of the other games I can remember. I can't remember the fifth one, but the there was two games where I went more of a spread action and approach.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Does that depend on the mission or your opponent mostly, do you
mhm.
think?
A bit of both.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and also what their threats are. I think,
Mm,
especially if it's more of a kill point setup, um, because they could have a bunch of units
mm.
that are not that relevant, which I'm tending to see more often. And the higher the order dice count, generally, the more they're going to have of those
Yeah.
units.
Yeah.
Um,
Backline
and
holders that don't really do anything. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Bomb stick men,
Mm.
bamboo spear fighters, which I think are rubbish, by the way. Um, I can't believe people would take an army without rifles. Poor guys. What do they expect them to do?
Die.
Yeah, no, they're not great.
No.
Um, yeah, so I, yeah, I think it's just a matter of depending on what they've got,
Mm.
and what I expect they may be trying to do as well, and if it's kill points. Because if it's kill
Yeah.
points, I think you can play that spread out approach more, and it's
Yeah.
easy to get away with.
Yeah. Yeah. That is true. So do you have like other people call it a standard operating procedure? What as a for me it's I try to identify the most threatening thing in a turn,
Mhm,
and then I sort of make a mental list. What do I need to do in which order of this turn? Do I need to kill stuff? Do I need to pin stuff before I do? So I make this sort of mental list of the order of which I need to do things and the importance of that. How do you
mhm,
approach the like your turn, the game itself?
mm.
Um, is it just what catches your eye, or is what how do you think about playing the game
Yeah,
here?
agree. There's definitely that to it, but it changes constantly.
Okay.
So those things, those priorities are getting shuffled
Mm,
nearly every couple of dice.
yeah.
Like I think because what the order that you get the dice can change. What they
Mm,
do might totally change things
mm,
again. They might do something unpredictable. You might get three in a row and you only wanted one. So I think that thing changes all the time, and I actually think that is what has the biggest impact on winning games bold action more than anything, more than
mm.
list, more than mission, way more. In fact, I would say it's probably 70%.
Your
Um,
ability to read the game and
mhm,
change your
yeah,
priorities to fit the situation.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's about 70%. I remember
Mm.
writing like a little pie graph once, and I'm like, pretty sure it's 70. What did I write? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so I think it's 70% decisions,
Mm.
1% luck, and 29% pre-plan. And the
Ooh.
pre-plan is comprises of list only being 10%,
Mm.
and mission and counter strat is 19%.
It would be really interesting if at some point we could actually try and work out the percentages here, because everyone has a different pie
Mm,
slice
it's
for these. But
impossible.
I agree, these are the ones that like planning,
Mm,
lists, decision making, which is what I call
mm,
player skill, I guess.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of different,
agreed.
and luck, of course, because it's a dice game still.
1%.
1%,
Luck is
only
1%.
1%.
Yeah,
I don't
100%.
believe that.
Luck is
I don't believe that.
1%. I honestly
There are
believe it.
some people there are some people on the internet who will say that it's like 80% luck, something like that,
No,
which I
no,
don't agree with, because then
it's
the same
definitely not.
players wouldn't be. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. You've won 3 tournaments in a row, big tournaments, and I mean, it just wouldn't happen that the same person would win again and again and again. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've actually won 12 in a row.
You've won 12 tournaments in a row. That is insane, Aaron. That is so
Yeah.
cool. Wow. So
But I do think those
basically,
percentiles are anecdotal. Like, there's no
yeah,
way we would actually be able to work out
no,
what
uh,
what
it's
they
at
are.
least very, very difficult to do some math
Mm,
on that. Yeah. Um.
yeah,
Wow. 12 tournaments in a row. Do you know how many games in a row that it is that you won? Because
all
some
of them,
people actually make. Sorry.
everyone.
Every single one by 12 tournaments. That's insane, Aaron. Right. I think I should be studying you. You should. I will make calls every weekend, and you can teach me how to play bold action. I think
No, I
because
don't think that's the case. You put out a lot of good content that obviously people are lapping up, and
yeah, I
um,
think they are,
you
but
you know what?
it's really um, it's mostly focused on lists and planning, which you just
Mm,
said is only 28% of the actual the rest people. And I agree. Actually, I think this is the most important part. I've said this quite often. I agree with you,
mm,
Aaron, that the decision making, the skills that you sort of build up, where you gather your priorities, you make sure you know what's happening on the game, you figure out what's most important to do in which order, and you figure out the math of that, whether it's likely to happen or not. That I think is the most important part of being good at bold action. But yeah,
mm.
so I sort of agree with your pie place.
Yeah, yeah, no, I yeah, yeah, it's hard to work out what it all is, right? And I think we've everyone's had probably a stab at it.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and there's yeah, I don't know. They just random percentages. Well, maybe not random, but percentages I come up with.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
it's
So
based
what's
on, I guess.
we are now at the end. I've run out of questions. I have one final one for you, and that is, what is on your list of to do now? You've already
Mm.
conquered Europe for Australia, taken back the you've colonized the colonizer. So what's next?
Um, well, funnily enough, I've got a BruiseCon this weekend, which is like Queensland's sort of premier event.
Yep.
So that's this weekend. So I'll play in that, which is like a 2-day event, which will be fun. And
Mm,
then really just trying to work out and try and organize to get a team together so we can sort of, bring a team over to the WTC or World Open and War. That's
yep.
I think is probably on the cards.
Yep.
Trying to make that happen, which we're edging definitely closer and closer towards, which is, yeah, that's great.
Really hoping that that will work out, because that would be, yeah, that would be awesome. I know
Mm,
like just economy and time and all of that, it really sucks, but yeah,
mm,
going
I'd
to go and
love
play
to.
games abroad is also cool, although expensive.
Yeah, it is. I think England, out of anywhere in Europe for us specifically,
Yeah,
is probably the
yeah,
most viable.
yeah, I think so too, just because it's easier to get there, right? Yeah,
Yeah, into London.
yep,
Yeah.
that's it. Right. Aaron, thank you so much for your time today. It's kind of weird. I'm sitting here in Denmark. It's early morning. You are in the evening in Australia, but it was really nice talking to you, and I hope everyone had a good time and learned something. So,
Awesome.
any final words, Aaron, before we sign off?
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for, I think as well, like probably on behalf of most of the community. Um, I like to say all. We know there's probably some people who aren't
There
all
are
that
some
interested
people.
in anything competitive,
Yeah,
but yeah, I think yeah, thanks for putting out the stuff. It's definitely helping people learn the game, which also, creates the excitement in
mm,
the community, helps people improve, which also makes events better and gaming better as well. So yeah, doing a great job with all that.
thank you,
So fantastic, and it
thank
was
you.
great to meet you as well in the flesh.
It really was, and good luck in the weekend.
Thanks, it'll be fun.
Right. That is it. See you next time. Cheers.
Yeah.